Welcome back. You're still watching the morning show here on Arise News, and joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni. Good morning, Mr. Efeni.
Good morning, Leila. Good morning, Ruben. Yes, all morning you've been talking about the windfall from the
windfall. The windfall has not arrived.
It's
yet.
on the way. The production sharing contract amendment bill signed into law by the president. And that's the lead story of these day newspapers. More revenue for Nigeria as Buhari assents to PSC Amendment Bill. New law to unlock extra $1.4 billion cash yearly for the Federation. Nigeria's push for more revenue. Yes, because I was thinking that bill will wait for President Buhari to come, because every day you don't sign that bill into law, we are losing money. And somehow that bill was taken to the president on what was described as a private visit to UK, which has not turned out to be a private/walking visit to the UK. Now, some other papers are also looking at this beyond the celebration of a potential windfall. The Daily Trust newspaper, Buhari leaves Oshimbaju floating, signs bill in the UK. And the story reads, President Buhari has temporarily relocated the presidency to the United Kingdom, where he signed the Deep Offshore and Inland Basin Production Sharing Contract Amendment Bill into law yesterday. That is how the paper puts it. And went further, President did nothing wrong aid. Now, went further to say that the Buhari had in the past allowed Vice President Emmanuel Efeni to act as president, even when he intended to spend few days, a development that gave leverage to his deputy to take serious decisions relating to governance in the past. And of course, he cited the instance of 2018 when President Buhari traveled for 10 days and he asked the vice president to act. But interpreting this further, the Daily Trust said, well, the fact that the president signed the bill while abroad was to send a strong signal that the vice president will not be allowed to take serious decisions anymore.
And they said that with what proof?
Yes. Now, citing a memo that President Oshimbaju had through a memo in September received a presidential directive asking him to seek presidential approvals before taking actions. In some agencies, it was asked to superintend. Asking where they are putting that. That is the memo they are looking at, perhaps. But,
well, see, you know, I don't always subscribe to these conspiracy theories. Because conspiracy theories in themselves can be problematic if you do not know all the facts at stake. You will recall that this particular bill was forwarded to the president, I think, before he left for Saudi Arabia, right? At one point, and it's not impossible that the president, in studying what has been sent to him by the National Assembly, you know, while traveling, had taken some documents with him to look at. If he could not look at those documents in Saudi Arabia, maybe it was during the course of his private visit in London that he will have more time to himself to study some of the files and treat them. A president does not stop being president because, you know, he goes on a trip either to Saudi Arabia or to the United Kingdom. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
So what is important, you know, is just the signature that he has put to it. And if you look at the importance that both the National Assembly and the executive arm of government, and also all of us stakeholders, you know, attached to this particular bill, that has now been signed by the president, I don't think it's out of place for the president to say, look, I want to look at it myself line by line. It may take me 5 days, it may take me 1 week, but I want to look at it and be sure that this is in Nigeria's best interest. So whether he signs it in Argentina or he signs it in the United Kingdom, as far as I'm concerned, it's immaterial. what is important is that, he has done what he needs to do. There has been no delay in this particular regard. National interest has been allowed to prevail. So I think the mischievous, analysis,
insinuation,
this is an attack on the office of the vice president. No, I don't think we should go that route. In any case, since the president traveled, the vice president has been one, leading the Federal Executive Council meetings on Wednesday.
Yes.
And does anybody have the information about so many other things that the vice president is doing? So those who are making a perpetual, unending attempt, to divide this presidency, I think, the presidency itself must note it and make sure that those persons are not allowed to achieve their sinister objective.
That is, if indeed there is no division. That is what we're...
I don't want to speculate.
Yes.
But I've just told you that,
it's okay.
The president is perfectly in order.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where he signs the bill as long as he appends his signature to it. Let's move on. But this one, Ruben, perhaps it will concern you. Vanguard newspaper, ex-presidents ask for tips to award contracts. Presidency. That's Garba Shehu speaking. The records of some of his predecessors in office bespeak a greedy trail. When they go abroad, they first ask, what is in it for me? What is there for my family? President Buhari is different. That's Malam Garba Shehu, senior special advisor to the president on media. Now, this allegation...
Is he speaking in his personal capacity?
That's what it sounds like.
Or is speaking for President Buhari?
He is speaking for the administration. He's the spokesperson for the presidency.
But he can also still speak in his personal capacity, no?
Well, but he's making an allegation that past president, you served past president Ruben, that when past presidents traveled out of the country, they asked for tips. This is what he has just said clearly. Of course, he was responding to critics who said the president had been traveling too much in recent times. And in addressing that issue of the president traveling too much, perhaps it seemed to be going overboard, in my opinion.
Loquaciousness or volubility is not an asset in, discharging the responsibility of a spokesperson. And, I tell people that sometimes, it shows greater discipline and, responsibility to keep quiet on some issues. It's not all issues that you just respond to. Because sometimes, if you talk, too frequently on just about any subject, you can make the mistake of expressing your personal views, and then it will be attributed to the presidency. And I think it's one of the lessons that any spokesperson will eventually learn in that position, that you have to be careful what you say, so that sometimes what your principal does not want you to say, you go and say it, and then they will say presidency.
The presidency said it.
Some other newspapers will even have put maybe President Buhari's name there. It's only when you read the story you see that it's a spokesperson who is making this statement, and you wonder whether, that is following the directive of the president himself. So it's very easy to get carried away and make allegations that cannot be substantiated. So I believe that in this case, Garba Shehu is just expressing his opinion. I don't think it's President Buhari that has sent him to go and tell Nigerians that former presidents were collecting tips. Don't forget that former presidents are members of the Council of State. They may not be in office, but they are still part of the governance process, and they are consulted on a regular basis. So spokespersons also must be careful not to make such statements, that could cause problems, among the club of former presidents of Nigeria, except, of course, if the statement is approved by the president himself.
Well, so
I think this, don't be surprised if, it's established that Garba Shehu is just making his own political statement, rather than something based on facts. If he said they were collecting tips, where former presidents functioning as waiters, that they will be collecting tips.
Well, let's move on, Ruben. The Guardian newspaper, why sins may not save judiciary by Senate panel. And the New Telegraph has similar story. Senate, Nigeria's judiciary vulnerable to compromise. That statement was made by the chairman of the Senate Committee on Judiciary, Okpeyemi Michael Bamidele, while screening 2 judges who were nominated by the president for positions. But what he has said, that even if saints are appointed from heaven to serve as justices and judges, it is only strength of character that can prevent them from being corrupt and dispense justice as required. While the National Judicial Council is talking about welfare packages for judicial officers very poor. The welfare packages for judicial officers in this country are nothing to write home about. Judges' salaries were last reviewed in 2017, but I don't think that will justify any corruption among judges. But if we just move over to the Nation newspaper, the federal government gives conditions to reopen the land border. The same story in the Punch, border closure. Nigeria gets tough with ECOWAS, bans repackaged imported goods. Federal government gives conditions for border reopening. I hope
those conditions will be agreed upon at a tripartite meeting that has been scheduled for 2 weeks' time, and it will include Nigeria, Niger, and the Republic of Benin. But some of the conditions that Nigeria is putting on the table is that these neighboring countries must respect ECOWAS rules of origin, and that there cannot be a transit points for imported goods from Europe that they will come and dump on the Nigerian market, and that warehouses, located within certain areas
close to the border,
at the borders between both countries, will have to be removed. And 3, anybody that is coming to Nigeria from any of these neighboring countries must have valid travel documents. Identity cards will no longer be accepted. You must have a valid passport, international passport. So those are some of the things that have been pointed out. But when they have that meeting in 2 weeks' time, the other details will be made public, I believe.
Okay. The foreign newspapers, Daily Express, UK. Prime Minister tells Corbyn, come clean on Brexit. Yes, Boris Johnson is challenging Jeremy Corbyn to come out with his own position on Brexit. What will happen after the election? It seems Labour, Corbyn in particular, is non-committal on what he's going to do after the election. And that is what Boris Johnson is hammering on.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel Efeni. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.
Yes, we will.